So just a little more finishing work on this, on the jeans. I'm going to take this left side now, and I'm going to start bringing up the weave. So one of the problems I had as a young illustrator is, especially on larger illustrations, where I had to render like this, or even doing trees and landscape, I would start the illustration and I'd have a lot to learn about how to render my subject. And so might take several hours before I figure out, okay, this is what fabric, this is the best way to render fabric, right? This particular fabric. And I would take what I learned in my second sitting and I would start to render differently. This, of course, was great that I was learning, but the problem was the one part of my illustration would start looking quite different from the first part and very frustrating. Either I had to fix the early part, or I had to basically set the entire piece aside and start again. And I did both until I learned how to fix things. And also, as you gain more experience rendering, you can kind of anticipate problems by, say, doing a swatch render off to the side. This would be a test swatch for rendering. If I was doing like a full-fledged illustration, I might actually do things like this to say, okay, how do I want this denim to look? How do I work? What kind of challenges am I going to face? What is the technique that is best for rendering it? And even in process of making these two videos, I've actually changed my technique a little bit. Actually, you notice I did full rows of lines, and now I'm dropping in shadows. So I'm kind of testing the waters here, trying different approaches as I show you how you can do this. And I feel like this is setting up a little faster than this side. Yeah, look at how fast that went. So what I'll do now is I'll take and you'll find this to be true too. As you're rendering, your renders will get more intense and more detailed, but they'll also tend to be faster. It's really amazing to watch as a student who may have spent 8 hours on the first render of, say, Chrome, or 5 hours, let's say, or glass. But when it comes time to do the last render of animals, they did it in 3 hours, and it looks brilliant. You know, it's just, you get comfortable with the medium. You're figuring out how to do things faster and better, and that's really what part of what the class is about. How do you get comfortable with these media, the media that we're working in, but also how do you learn how to plan out things and build a strategy for rendering a subject that's both fast and good, and fast and good together are very nice things to have as a professional, because you do get under deadline pressure. So here I'm switching a little bit into tone, and I'm going to highlight some of the folding that's going on. It's that kind of pre-wash thing where you put the jeans in and they shrink unevenly like that. And you can see that is not bad. It's not finished yet, but you know what? I wouldn't be displeased if I was starting a finished render if it was going about like this. So here, I'm going to block this seam back. Give it another try doing this section. And this time, because I didn't like it the way it went on this first area, kind of botch that a little bit. I'm going to put in my shadow, my cast shadow first, get that located. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to firm up this edge here. When I say firm up an edge, I mean literally I want to define. And right here, you notice what I'm doing. I have a marker in my hand. I'll tend to want to go around and use it in different places. There is a shadow on the other side of the pocket. Why not just go ahead and blend in like that, and then take a lighter marker, like a 20, and just finish blending that out. At this point, this is a seam here. I can make that almost disappear. It's still there. I know where it's located, so I can actually enhance it with pencil. And here I'm going to start going in with, this is actually a 50. and blending it. It may actually seem like my texture is almost going away, which is fine because I intend to do a second pass on this. And I need to sharpen. Do that. So, now, more intense. So I kind of slow down, a little more pressure, a little more thoughtfulness. My pencil always wants to break a little bit at first. Yeah. And here's where I kind of slip into this little slightly stipple approach. If the contrast gets too high, it almost might start looking metallic, by the way. I mean, it's amazing. You could take denim, what's supposed to be denim, and then start making it look metallic just by shifting the level of contrast. So to counteract that, I do something you wouldn't typically see in, say, a brushed metal. I'm going to do a crossing pattern, which indicates a stitch. Or a thread, I should say, a thread pattern. So here I'm trying a little different approach. I'm making it a little more obvious that it's a thread pattern. I kind of like that effect. So I'm going to continue it down here. As I say, you may want to do a little swatch off to the side before you start your main render, just to do some experimentation to see what will work best. I'm doing it before your very eyes in this demo. But that's fine because it shows you there are different ways to do things. So here again, I'm enhancing these shadow details in here. A little black pencil, and since I like that stitching pattern with the black pencil across the white, I'm actually going to add it in there. And that's, I think at this point, it's starting to look like denim. I mean, I think if the person hadn't seen this illustration before would look at this and hadn't seen the photo would say, yeah, that's denim jean. So stitching drops just below the frayed edge here. So watch me just quickly drop a stitch line in here. And then give it some weight with the cast shadow underneath because our light is coming from above. Remember, you still got to remember where your light source is coming from and be consistent. And then a kind of uneven stroke at the top. And look at how that stitching just jumps off the surface of the fabric. But that, in a nutshell, that's really what we're going for. This is an interesting seam. It's like a second pocket. So how would I do that? I might just do just a tone along the edge here and then fade it. And then you notice the stitching, I keep saying stitching, I mean the thread pattern comes across. It actually rolls over the top. So I'm curving it over like that to start the pattern, and then down here it's much more subtle, so it kind of drains away and then reappears a little bit if the light catches on the fabric. So I can actually kind of do these guidelines down and say, okay, right about in here, the light catches a little bit. And so I bring them back up again, just subtly like that. Then, since this is actually another pocket within a pocket, I'm going to put a hard edge line here, but I'm going to make it a little bit of a sketchy line because this is a soft fabric. And look at that, I actually brought up that highlight very quickly. So that gives you an insight, some basics into rendering denim.